Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is John Martin. I'm calling to order the Tuesday, September 21st meeting of the County Development Committee and ask please that the clerk call the roll.
Brown,
Brown here.
Berman,
Burn here.
Ford,
Present. Iqbal present.
Kenyon,
Here.
Wojnicki,
Present.
Braz, Caius,
Kai is present.
Pirog,
Present.
Shepro,
Shepro present.
Martin.
Present.
You have a quorum.
We are going to defer approval of the minutes until next month's meeting. I have two speakers signed up for public comment. Mr. Don Sinkus, I presume that you're here in support of your petition and to answer questions, or did you want to make a presentation? Are you online with us? That question later. And then Mr. Luer, are you present? And I think he's relative to Harder Road. Excuse me? Okay, well, I'm going to ask each of them to speak when I arrive at the presumptive proper time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
And who's this that's speaking?
I'm sorry, Dan Lure.
Okay, do you want to speak or are you here to answer questions relative to the project?
Here to answer questions.
Okay, then we'll defer until we reach that point on the agenda.
Okay,
The first matter before us is the monthly financials. And you may review those online. The Building and Zoning Division.
Good morning. This is Mark Van Kerkhoff. Just happy to report that we continue to work primarily remotely, receiving building permits in via email and issuing those remotely. Our customers continue to really like that. We're also continuing to follow up on complaints. Further on in this meeting, you have some zoning petitions for your consideration this morning. And I have a more detailed report on the agenda this morning in terms of our building code update. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mark? Hearing none, let's proceed to the zoning petitions.
Okay, good morning again. First petition is number 4581, Aurora Township for Francisco Esparza, located at 27 Baseline Road in Aurora Township. Request rezoning from F District Farming to B3 Business District with special use for parking trucks. This is the location. You can see the small red square kind of in the center of the bottom there. This is in an area that is surrounded by Montgomery to the east and to the north. On our land use plan, this is urban, which allows for mixed uses of businesses and residential. This is the zoning, a little delay in this. This is a zoning map. You can see that there's a B3 special use to the west, a special use to the northeast. Again, surrounded primarily by the village of Montgomery. These three parcels zoned F District Farming. Here it is on the aerial. You can see the parcel to the northwest, and the parcels to the north are fairly heavily developed for industrial and truck parking uses. There's a close-up, and again, the area subject of this morning's zoning is this northern part of the existing parcel. Here's another close-up of the area the petitioner wants to use for truck parking. And another close-up. The petitioner resides in the or owns the house to the south of this parcel. And he did begin parking trucks on this parcel in violation of the zoning ordinance. And staff has been working with him on remedying that. As this would be one of his remedies, would be to pursue this rezoning. There's also items in terms of the stormwater that would, if this is approved by the county board, would need to be addressed. This is the area for rezoning. There's a site plan indicating they would be putting a fence around the parking area. Staff recommended comments and stipulations. There's some comments from Water Resources about the existing grindings, that they would require a stormwater permit to come into compliance with the stormwater ordinance, which includes topographic survey to demonstrate there's no fill in the floodplain. KDOT, he has a stipulation in terms of highway easement to Aurora Township, and the health department didn't have any comments. This was not applicable for the Regional Planning Commission. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval with the stipulations, and it's before your consideration this morning. I believe Mr. Esparza may be present in the room this morning as well. He is.
May we have a motion, please?
Brown moves.
Mr. Brown moves, Mr. Kenyon, Mr. Ford seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Ms. Winicki?
Just a quick question. Sorry, Mark, where was the floodplain on the map? Yeah,
The floodplain is actually the Montgomery overflow. There is the best available information that was provided by Engineering Enterprises that we utilize in this area. So it's not a mapped floodplain by FEMA. It's a presumed floodplain. And it does cut the parcel in about half. So we will need to look at that fencing through that area to ensure that it doesn't back up any water.
I wonder, wonder if they'll separate that floodplain area from their parking area?
I believe the floodplain actually goes through part of the parking area.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you repeat that, please? That comment?
Mr. Teberg here is here to address that as well. Do you have the exact location of the floodplain on this property?
Would you please identify yourself and give your address?
I don't think it's on, Jody. Oh, there you go.
Don Teberg with Teberg Engineering from Sandwich, Illinois. Yeah, we were working with Montgomery and Engineering Enterprises on verifying the floodplain through this property. The floodplain really is to the south of the home. The elevations in the back are actually 5 feet higher than the flood analysis that when they did that, going all the way from quite a bit of, well, the whole flood map that came from the west and through here. These three houses that are in this particular section, the flood map shows the elevation to be about between 652 and 653, and it's really contained to the front yards. There should be no impact to any of the fencing or the parking lot in the back. We'll be submitting that to Jody with any of our calculations and with the water permit, stormwater permit.
Thank you. Further questions? Comments? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Winicki,
Yes,
Braz, Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes,
Passes.
motion carries. Petition 4582.
Yes, petition 4582, Donald Sinkus requesting rezoning from F District Farming to F1 Rural Residential. This is its location on the 2040 future land use map. It's an area that's designated for agriculture. Here it is on the zoning map. You can see it's predominantly F District Farming in this whole area. with a few other F1s and E3 further to the north, and then a special use just to the west and south of the subject parcel. This is on Francis Road, just a little south of Route 38 in the railroad tracks. Here it is on an aerial. You can see the predominant use in this area is for farming. Here's the subject property again. In a close-up, you can see there are existing home residents on the property, as well as some accessory structures. Another close-up. Here is the plat of survey of the subject property. Staff recommends stipulations. Water Resources has following stipulations. They're noting that the site has been issued a stormwater permit for construction of BMP and accessory structure. Covenant restrictions for the BMP must be recorded under the stormwater ordinance, and also noting that they are approaching the threshold for requiring stormwater detention. Staff recommended findings of fact is that the rezoning will not intensify as the existing residential use would remain and allow the farmland to be sold off separately. This was not applicable for the Regional Planning Commission. Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval with the stipulations. It's before you this morning, and I believe, as you noted, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Sinkus is on the line if there's any questions or comments that you'd like to make.
Thank you. May we please have a motion?
Brown moves.
Mr. Brown moves, Ms. Winnicki seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford, Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes,
Carries.
motion carries. Petition 4583.
Once again, 4583 Old Second National Bank Trust requesting rezoning from F District Farming to F1 District Rural Residential. This is its location on the 2040 land use map. This is for proposed open space, and then also surrounded by some actual open space with the Forest Preserve District to the north and west, and agriculture to the south side of Harder Road. Here it is on the zoning map, and you can see there's F District Farming. There's one other F1 and some other smaller lots grandfathered in residential uses along Harder Road. The subject parcel is a very unusual shape. The area subject to the rezoning is circled in blue there on the presentation, although the actual pin and parcel has a long stem to the north. Here it is on the aerial. You can see this is there's quite a bit of farmland to the south of Harder Road, but this is quite a unique area topographically to the north of Harder Road. Here it is again on the aerial, and again it's the small square area along Harder Road that's the subject of the rezoning for the F1. Here's the plat of survey for the zoning, and they identified an approximate location for the building envelope and the dashed line for the proposed new single-family residence if the zoning were to be approved. Staff recommends stipulations. Water Resources had a number of stipulations in terms of property because of its unusual shape. Does contain both floodplain and wetland, and stipulation that no development improvements would be allowed in the wetland and floodplain without permitting, and areas with steeper slopes should not be disturbed and follow the guidance in stormwater ordinance. Additionally, they have some stipulations in terms of the depth of the basement and height of the first floor of new construction. Those would all be reviewed as part of the building permit once it's submitted if this zoning is approved. KDOT would like to have the owner consolidate the 3 existing access points into one, and they would have to obtain a permit for all the work from KDOT, as this is a KDOT road. And the health department would just need to meet current well and septic codes for the proposed home. Water Resource has some additional stipulations, which I will not read in detail, but Jody Walnick is here to answer any questions regarding that. And again, a lot of this would be reviewed as part of a condition before issuing any building permits. Regional Planning Commission was not applicable. Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval with the stipulations. It's before you this morning, and I believe Mr. Lur is also on the line if there's any questions or comments that he'd like to make or questions the committee has of him.
Thank you. May we please have a motion? Mr. Ford moves.
Caius second.
Mr. Caius seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown, Ford, Iqbal,
Paul, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes. Yes.
Braz, Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes, motion carries. Item C, building code updates.
Good morning again. There is a memo in your packet regarding desirability for the Kane County Board to adopt the latest editions of the building code. There's also a presentation in the packet, which I will go through quickly and let you know the schedule and reasons for it, as well as answer any questions that you might have. So Blair, I don't know if you can advance it to the presentation. Okay, thank you. And then just scroll through the memo to the presentation portion. I think the presentation is after the memo in this particular. Oh, thank you. No. Great, thank you. Oh. Yes, thank you. So our current ordinance adopts the 2012 editions of the International Code Council ICC model codes with amendments. This was adopted in 2012. Updates are needed to obtain a favorable ISO rating for property insurance. So it does have an impact on our residential and commercial property owners in the unincorporated area. Our proposed new ordinance would adopt the 2021 editions of the same code with amendments as appropriate. The types of amendments that we currently have with the 2012 versions have to do with removing code sections that don't apply to Kane County, structure of government for administration and enforcement, removes types of materials and construction that are not suitable for Kane County. It refers to other local ordinances in cases where those ordinances government. A good example is our stormwater ordinance. Carryover of other amendments for specific definitions related to construction in Kane County. And then we've also, in our current code, removed requirements for automatic fire suppression systems in new 1- and 2-family dwellings and townhouses. This requirement is addressed by several of our fire districts who also have the authority to require fire suppression. Building proposed schedule. It's before you this morning to present an overview of the reason for the code change. We'd like to, if you concur and direct staff to move ahead with the code adoption preparation. We would begin giving notice to the public, architects and contractors in Kane County that the new codes are are being updated. We're proposing an effective date of January 1st of 2022. Makes it very easy for everyone to prepare for, as well as remember once the new codes are in effect. And the new codes would be applicable to all building permit applications received on or after January 1st. On October 1st, we provide notice to Illinois Public Building Commission as required by state statute on their website. For your next meeting, we would have a draft resolution adopting the new building code with proposed amendments. The new code would be up before the county board in November 9th, and then with an effective date of January 1st, 2022. So requested action this morning is just to direct staff to draft a new building ordinance adapting the 2021 model codes with amendments following the proposed process and schedule. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the sprinklers for the 1 and 2 family homes. I know that it is very costly for a builder to install these. However, how should I phrase this? Given the limited amount of money of government support for fire protection districts and the challenges that they are facing, is this being short-sighted not to require this to be initiated on new construction? Because this could save lives. Certainly it's required in multifamily new construction for protection. And I know that there is pushback from builders and from purchasers because of the additional expense on this. But to remove it completely, is that an appropriate thing that we want to do here in Kane County? And also, if you can share with us, I believe it was passed by state law that these issues have to be considered. Is that correct? For the sprinklers?
I can check on that. I'm not aware of that under state statute, so I can double check on that. The reason many counties for the unincorporated area take this requirement out is because of the challenges in having an automatic fire suppression system on a well type system as opposed to connected to a public water supply. But I can certainly work with our staff at the health department regarding what kind of additional challenges that has without a pressurized system. Because generally one of the challenges are if a fire begins and the power is cut, the well pump doesn't function any longer, and the impact of the actual water pressure that's available could be limited unless there's more pressure in the tank or that kind of thing.
So just to clarify, so it's straight in my head, we're talking about in unincorporated areas rather than the entire Kane County. I thought this was the entire Kane County.
Oh, this would only, yeah, thank you. That's a good clarifying question. This is only applicable to the unincorporated areas of Kane County, which is what the county board has the authority for building codes and building permitting. And then it would also be applicable to a number of small rural villages who we do the permitting and inspections for under intergovernmental agreements. And those would be Big Rock, Caneville, and Virgil.
Who will also have water pressure issues.
Yes. So, but I'd be happy to bring additional information as this goes through the review process, if the committee would like.
So, all right. I don't mean to belabor this. Because we have development occurring in unincorporated Kane County, and there may be multifamily in those areas because land is available and it's desirable to build there, and it's not incorporated yet into one of the municipalities, we would forego, even though they may not be on, they may be on a larger well system, aquifer kind of thing. We would forego requiring any kind of sprinklers in the townhouse development and it may be multi-floor, like a condo, or if there was in senior housing.
Well, it depends on the type of multifamily. So for instance, out in Mill Creek, the senior facility there has all automatic fire suppression system throughout the entire building because of the type, as do the apartments that have been constructed or under construction. So this really only applies to 1 and 2 family dwellings. Any multifamily would fall under the requirements for fire suppression. So this is really for the removing the automatic fire suppression requirement is just for single-family homes and duplexes.
Like the 2 houses we just approved for development.
Correct, yes.
I think it's worthy to note that when projects, whether they're industrial or residential or whatever, by number or sophistication require utilities, they almost always end up being annexed to or be within municipalities because there are no functional ways to provide some of these benefits to the property unless you're within a city and you can tie up to their municipal utilities. Dr. Iqbal, I think you had a question.
Yeah, Mr. Martin, sir. First of all, I do recommend adoption of both code. They are current. There are 2 codes. One is IBC and the other one is IRC, which is for the residential small buildings. I have one request. I'm looking for these codes and I cannot find them in the county, any library. So if there is some money and if one copy be placed in law library, that would be really good for the citizens.
Building code?
Yeah, building code, one copy could be replaced, could be placed in law library.
Isn't it online?
Pardon?
Isn't it online?
My
My
I don't
experience
think
with
it-
codes is that they incorporate other codes and that they're always online.
Online too, but hard copies are available too. If there's an access online, that would be great.
Okay, Mark,
But I don't think we'd get a license for online so that everyone could access it. It's a limited license, so a hard copy probably is the one. I don't know.
address that?
So we are in the process, so we have our order all queued up. We're waiting until a direction from the committee because there are different versions. There's a 2018 version. We're recommending the 2021. And we will be purchasing the digital PDF versions for mainly use for our team internally, as well as hard copies to make available to the public. So those will all be addressed and be available. And your suggestion of the law library, I'll check with the state's attorney's office if they're, fine with that, as well as with the current hours and any restrictions on the use of the law library at this time.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Epi, question?
Mr. Tepe.
Thank you. One of the things is that in residential areas, it's required to have a permit for a fence, but yet there is no limit on the height of the fence. Do these new building codes address that?
These do not. Those would fall under our zoning ordinance.
Then that's something we need to do because, as you know, there was an individual that put in a 10-foot high fence in a residential area and there was nothing that could be done. So we need to address that issue. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the issue of having other access to the building codes, if we can see, I know it's probably online, but are there other areas that we might need this information for people who don't do the online access?
I think Mark said that they're going to produce a hard copy.
Okay,
Uh,
but I didn't hear him what he said, where though?
This is just a comment and maybe a little cynical, but my experience over the years with building codes is that they are so convoluted and confusing that the only way anybody ought to consider building on a piece of property is to contact the building department and get somebody to sign something in writing. because they are a series of adopting other codes by reference. These things change all the time, and ultimately, when you're seeking to build a building, it's the enforcement entity that's going to tell you that you comply. And at least, again, in my experience, I've always told clients to read it for entertainment value, but go to the county or the city or whatever for confirmation that what you're going to do is approvable. Mark?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. We will have hard copies and we will, let people know where they are available. We are very fortunate. The county board is part of our development department team. We have 2 licensed architects who serve as our in-house plan reviewers. And they spend a lot of time both in handouts with typical comments that we're looking for on building plans, working with people in their plan reviews, from licensed architects to homeowners, and helping them through the process, because as the chairman noted, it's quite a convoluted process. It can be. So we work with our constituents and local builders as part of a team approach to helping them be successful in getting their plans in compliance with the building codes that are adopted with that. So we're very fortunate to have them on the team. They're going to be also working with me on the proposed amendments that tailor fit these to Kane County's situation. So
I always relate building codes to the Bible. Everybody wants to agree that it's the absolute truth, but absolutely nobody agrees on what it says.
There are people who believe that they can understand and look to go through the code books. I hear a lot from different.
No, I'm not faulting it.
I
I'm
know,
just
yeah.
saying it was something I shied away from. for
I
40
hear you.
years.
I hear you. I hear you.
All right,
I have a question.
Mr. Kenyon.
Are we talking about requiring sprinklers in these houses or businesses? And do we know how much water pressure has to be available?
Well, they're taking those provisions out,
Okay.
and it's just houses.
It was somebody's brother-in-law that sold them. That's why they put it in there before. Some fireman's brother-in-law. It's a joke.
There, any other valuable comments? All right. We're asked for a consensus. Absent any objection, I'm going to assume that we have consensus for Mark's department to move ahead and conclude this task. Consensus granted. We need to discuss our keep ordinance. And Mr. Van Kerkhoff, I'll ask you to introduce that topic.
Sure, thank you. And I'll just note, first of all, in your packet also is our monthly staff report. Our planning division team kind of summarizing their work. They mainly report to other committees. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, just ask that you place the report on file. The other item under planning and special projects, we hard to believe already, but we're already at the point with our contract with our current KEEP program administrator to enter into an extension, which is provided for in the current contract to extend that authorization. We are working with the state's attorney's office just to go over the existing agreement to make sure there isn't anything else that needs to be reworded based on any changes with the state statute for the PACE program. And we would be making those corrections prior to it going to executive committee if needed. But our program administrator, the Illinois Energy Conservation Authority, has brought good projects to the county board to date. The most notable being, and recent one being in Aurora with the former Copley Hospital site. That was part of the multi-million-dollar financing package to make that happen. There's some other exciting projects that are in the queue. IECA is also become sort of a regional administrator as other counties in our region have also signed them on as program administrator. And there's great value in that in terms of some of the commercial property owner targets or potential customers, clients for this program are entities, real estate entities that manage or own properties throughout the Chicago region. So having sort of a one-stop way to potentially enter into projects in any of our counties is a big benefit. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, ask that you move this resolution on, subject to any additional changes by the state's attorney's office.
And it's a great program, and repeating what Mark said in part, there may be some necessary technical cleanup, but the substance of what we're approving today is what will be before us at the executive committee should the vote be favorable. So I will entertain a motion.
Caius move.
Mr. Caius moves. Dale seconds. Do we have comments or questions?
Bates, please.
Ms. Bates?
Yeah, thank you for this great program and especially for helping with the old Copley Hospital, which is definitely in need of help. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford. Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wodnicki,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Approved.
Motion carries. Does that conclude everything, Mark, on your behalf? Okay, I was going to ask if Deanne was online, but I see she's present. This is, we're going to utilize a word here that's Mr. Caius's favorite word, because all subdivisions, once they're approved, have sunset provisions. This one doesn't get done in time, and they're asking to extend sunset. So Deanne, please proceed.
Good morning. Thank you. Let's see if we've got there we go. Marincelli subdivision is actually on the very southern end of the county. You originally had this before you in February of this year, in which you did approve it, following approval from the Village of Montgomery in November of 2020. As many of you know, there was pretty significant changes in the village with the planning department. And unfortunately, the new planner was not aware that the village had already approved the subdivision plat, so they took it back through their approval process in June. So this is simply to clear up and make sure that our development committee is the last say on this project. The plat did not change other than the signatures that are on the subdivision plat. But we are asking for your reaffirm approval of the subdivision following approval from the Village of Montgomery.
Motion, please.
Brown will move.
Mr. Brown. Ford seconds. Comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman, Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wodnicki,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes,
Carries.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Environmental resources?
We have nothing under environmental resources. Under water resources, Rob Blinky is here today to give an update to the committee on some changes with the wetland regulations and how it might extend and impact our developments in Kane County.
Rob?
Good morning, everyone. Attached in the agenda is a brief memo that gives a short summary, and I'll just provide a very brief overview. At the beginning of the month, there was a district court ruling in Arizona that had some impacts to how the Army Corps of Engineers regulates wetlands. I think, as you guys are all familiar, here within Kane County, overall nationwide, the Army Corps of Engineers has jurisdiction over wetlands they define as waters of the United States. There's always been some legal issues that have gone back and forth as administrations have changed as far as what waters the U.S. are actually defined as, and this recent court ruling restricted or reduced or called into question how waters of the U.S. have been defined previously. And so for the last month or so, there's been a hold on these jurisdictional determinations. So every time a Kane County stormwater permit comes into Kane County, if there are the potential for wetlands on those properties, the county requires that the Army Corps of Engineer or that the applicant submit a jurisdictional determination that's provided by the Army Corps of Engineers. And so for the last month, that's been on hold as they were figuring out how they were going to determine what is considered waters of the U.S. and what isn't. Thankfully, that was actually resolved last week. So this memo is slightly out of date in the sense that the jurisdictional determinations are occurring. However, we have been advised that there is a 21-day review that has to occur when an applicant goes to the Army Corps of Engineers for one of these wetland determinations. It has to go to the US EPA for a 21-day period for their potential comments. So we're expecting that there could be a slight delay in the timeframe in which our stormwater permits are issued. I think that's really all I have to add. I don't know, Jody.
I think the other thing staff is looking at too is we had a fairly decent handle on what the Army Corps was going to determine to be jurisdictional and what would be under Kane County's authority. And I think this is probably put into question, at least for myself. Mr. Link will probably echo that. That we don't have such a comfort level when we're looking at a development that does have wetlands and potential wetland impacts, whether that will be jurisdictional under Kane County or the Army Corps of Engineers. And so because of this, again, it might delay some of the issuance of our stormwater permits, waiting for that documentation because we aren't sure under whose jurisdiction those wetlands will fall now.
So just to be clear, the wetland resource we have in Kane County are protected. We have the benefit of the county regulations, which many other counties within the state of Illinois and throughout the United States don't have those protections. So the wetland resources themselves will be protected. It's just a question of, are they considered isolated wetlands that fall under Kane County's jurisdiction only, or are they jurisdictional wetlands? So that would be like the main rivers and streams that the Army Corps takes jurisdiction over. It sounds like, based on the information we've gotten to date, is that they've defaulted back to an earlier ruling called the Rapanos ruling from back in the early 2000s. And basically they're looking at taking jurisdiction over any wetlands that have what they call a significant nexus. So it's if you can show that there's a direct connection between the wetland and the adjacent stream or the Fox River, then the Corps would take jurisdiction. But either way, the wetland is still protected here in King County. It's just, again, there's this potential delay as we wait for the Army Corps to give us the official paperwork saying that they have jurisdiction or not. So just something we wanted you to all be aware of.
Are there any
questions
or comments, Mr. Link? Is there any kind of a timeline on when we think all of this is going to be clear, or?
Unfortunately not. It's really kind of up to the Corps of Engineers. Like I said, I think it sounds like they built in this 20-day review period. So they're basically relying on the US EPA to give them direction for each one of their jurisdictional determinations. So in theory, as they do more of these and get more experience, they'll become a little faster. And they used to be able to turn them around within a week or so. And now it's sounded like they want a mandatory 3-week.
Well, do
period.
they have the right or the ability to extend that 21 days if they're not done with the review?
That I'm not aware of. I think it's just they're given the US EPA 21 days to respond. Otherwise, they can issue their jurisdictional determination.
So if they don't respond in 21 days, are we free to draw assumptions, or are we?
Well, so we would not issue a stormwater permit until we had that what we call the JD, the jurisdictional determination.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anything else, Jody? Thank you. Mr. Berger?
Good morning, Chairman Martin. This is Scott Berger. I am on the line right now. As you can see on your agenda, we do not have any business before the committee, but I do want to take an opportunity to remind you and the committee that we continue to get the word out regarding the availability of rent assistance. We certainly want to make sure that our lower income renter households, as well as their landlords, are aware that assistance is available from a variety of agencies right now. We are sending folks to a website, illinoisrentalassistance.org, where they can learn more about that. And I would invite you and the members of the committee, if you have any questions about that or would like us to provide you some more information for your constituents, to please simply reach out. We're happy to supply you with that information. Thank you.
Thanks. I have a question. Are we getting good response?
I think we are, yes. We have quite a pile of applications that we're working through right now. And so are the agencies that are delivering assistance on behalf of the state.
Good. Any questions of Mr. Berger,
I have one.
Madam Chair?
I see Brenda's here, and perhaps she can step up. There has been some delightful movement on a press release that has been released in support of this. So if you wouldn't mind, I think it's good. It's excellent news.
Hello, thank you. Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. Aileen O'Connor, who is an on-air news
Sorry,
person.
but could you just put your name in the record?
Brenda Bushbacher.
you.
Aileen O'Connor, who is an on-air news personality with Chicago Univision, interviewed several people from Kane County last week in a recorded interview that will be broadcast this Sunday on 4 different Univision stations throughout Chicagoland. And I'm sorry, I don't have those stations with me right now. But it's a 12-minute interview, which is just, wonderful for Chicago airtime to get that amount of time in this market. So thank you to Madame Pirog for all of her help, and for the Office of Community Reinvestment for their help in locating the interview subjects.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We have any new business to be brought before this committee? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to place the reports made today on file? Ms. Winnicki moves, Mr. Kyle seconds. Comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford, Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin,
Yes,
carries.
motion carries. Reports are on file. We have no need for executive session. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn from Mr. Kenyon and second by Dr. Iqbal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at